Thanks for joining us on this new compact version of Does It Resonate With You, where we take a whole show from each week and cut it into smaller and more digestible chunks so that you can listen on the go or listen to them all in a row, whatever works for you. We really want you to find your own truth while we discover and discuss ours. And while we're at it, could we encourage you to reach down and hit that subscribe button? Thanks so much. We'll see you on the other side. Hello and welcome again to Does It Resonate With You? We're going to resume with our new format where we're going to split the show up into 3 pieces because it's just the 2 of us. So we're going to do 2 20-minute pieces of conversation and then one more piece of tarot time, which it seems like you guys are really enjoying it separate, right? Which I think is a really great idea because it gives you a lot of opportunity to go back and review without having to fast forward or figure out where it is, and sort of repackage it for yourself in a way that really works. I believe now I've managed to get them into their own playlist.
Cool.
And so at the very least, the ones that we're recording separate from now on will be in their own playlist. And then we'll, like I said before, we'll see what we're going to do about the ones that are attached. We'll just go in and probably chop them off and make them their own video.
Sure.
Since it's always at the end, it shouldn't be too hard to do. Anyway, so while I'm at it, I'm just going to ask you real quick, please subscribe. Hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and hit that notify me button when every now and then we get the episode scheduled before the time it's supposed to be released. So if you see that come up, hit that notify me button so you hear from us right away. I'm excited about this conversation today.
Yeah.
We both enjoy. We're going to talk about this. I don't know. What do you call that? Like a newsletter, an email, an article?
Yeah, it's a newsletter.
That Deepak Chopra wrote. Yeah, it's a really nice, really, really nice. It's a really nice subject to talk about, and there's a few interesting places for us to go with it. So, why don't you just go ahead and give us, John, a little backstory on where it is, where you got it,
sure,
and the gist of what they're talking about.
Yep, good. So, I've been reading Deepak Chopra books for many years. And maybe this past year, I think it was, I signed up for one of his newsletters on LinkedIn. So I get this newsletter that comes in my feed in LinkedIn, but it also comes to me via email. And it's the kind of thing, a lot of people sign up for newsletters and then they come in and they go to your they come in your inbox,
spam folder, your junk folder,
and it's like you never look at them. The funny thing about the Deepak Chopra ones is that every time it comes in, I do stop what I'm doing and read it because they're that good.
And they're not long. It wasn't long.
Right.
It was long because the one thing I don't like is when you get an email that's like 14 feet long. I don't have the time or the attention span for that.
Right. I don't either. I can't interrupt my day for, a 3-hour read.
No.
But the Deepak Chopra one, here's the title of the of the newsletter that he sent. I use my memories. I don't let my memories use me. And that caught my attention. I thought, what is that? That sounds really interesting, but what does he mean by it? And so we dug into it, and Angie and I kind of went back and forth a little bit and said, wow, this is a really good topic. So I guess, shall we dig in?
We shall. So the very first thing is that the article suggests that I use, and it's really interesting because I honestly use my memories. I don't let them use me. So it really resonated with me. I am not a dweller. I'm not melancholy. I don't really care for what's that. Backwards, I like nostalgia, but I don't, whatever that is. I just don't. And now here's the rim shot, right? The article suggests I use my memories and I don't let my memories use me as a sign of higher consciousness.
I know. When I reread that, I'm like, good on you.
And how do you interpret this statement, and why is it important in the context of personal evolution and consciousness? So that's kind of the question we want to toss around, and we're
Yeah.
gonna. So let's preface this with, we are going to try again to reformat a little bit, where we're going to have pointed questions to ask about the subject, so that we kind of try to stay on topic. I
Sure.
mean, I know that some of you really like it when we go off topic, because you never know where we're going to fly, but I can see energetically in so many directions the relevance of this, and the difference. Do you know people that let their memories use them?
I do. I
I
do.
do.
Very,
I do too.
and
And
they're miserable.
that they are, aren't they? Like, they
Yes.
really, really are.
Yep.
So, in terms of the statement higher consciousness, I think it's important that we put out there that we don't mean we're better
Right.
or even
It,
higher. Like, it's
we
a vibrational state. He's talking about a vibrational state. And those memories that are negative or difficult are low vibration memories.
right.
And
Essentially, I think what he's saying is, if you let your memories bring you down, that's going to make life difficult. And if you use your memories to, you know, like learning a skill, well, part of learning a skill is using the memories of what you've learned before, and that propels you forward. So that's the gist of that comment there.
I think so. And I think that it is important. I mean, there's so many cliches or ways to put this, right? If you spend all your time looking backwards, you're never going to see what's in front of you.
Right.
Or if you walk too far facing the back, you're going to trip over something. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
or you're
Yep.
going to miss what's there. I mean, there's so many ways to look at it. But the truth of the matter is, I really honestly believe that you hit the nail on the head. And I don't really know why people are like this, but the people that let their memories use them are typically miserable.
Yep.
And it makes me very sad. I see people all the time, because I'm, in my 60s. So I see posts all the time, if you could go back to the 70s, would you? No. If you could go back to the 80s, would you? For a visit? But no. No, and I wouldn't. I
Yeah.
mean, those
That's really
things are the
interesting.
sum total. The
Yep.
memories I have of that are the sum total of who I am. But I feel like I want to appreciate where I am in the now. And I want to be here. And and I'm happy with what I've accomplished in my
Me
life. And
too.
some of that is because I don't, oh, what is that word? It's not melancholy, and it's not nostalgia. Whatever. I don't do that. I don't dwell. I don't, I just feel like,
It's kind of ruminating on the past, right?
yeah, it sure is, isn't it?
Yep. Yep.
Do you think that, so now we've had discussions with Lisa, about astrology. We've had discussions with other, with other people like Val and,
Yep.
Other energy workers. We've had conversations amongst ourselves. Do you think that different people handle that situation differently? In other words, is there something about not necessarily just their vibrational state, but who they are at soul level that might make them be more of a dweller than another? Like, I know Lisa saw for me, she could understand I'm a cut 'em loose person.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Like, I cut 'em loose. Like, nobody, I just cut them loose. So maybe, is there something in there? And would there be then, if a person understands that all the time they spend dwelling doesn't make them feel good or better?
Right.
Is there something they might find in their chart, maybe, that they could come to their awareness, and they, oh, this is how I am, so I have to kind of work
I
to
think
keep
the
this from
operating
happening?
Yeah, I think the operating word is let it go. I think some people have a harder time letting go of stuff that doesn't serve them anymore Like, so here's an
True.
example. Let's say there's a mother whose grown adult child no longer speaks with them, and they pour over that issue day after day, and they tell all their friends, my son doesn't talk to me, and so on, and they just ruminate, and they've not been able to say, he makes his own decisions, and that is it, and I am fine with or without him. That's
You opened a can of worms right there, my dear.
I know. It's right. So
because so, and this is relevant to the conversation. Take that same person. What I think is important is not just to recognize that that child is their own person, but to reflect. This is where memories don't use you. You should use them to reflect on what is your part in that dynamic. In other words, I don't think, and I mean, as a person, I'm the child in this situation that you're talking about. You can, and this is what I'm going to tell you, you can only be called a piece of crap for so long before you either A, believe it, or understand B, that you are not, and you got to cut it loose.
You got to cut them loose.
So that's what I did. I cut it loose. But that...
Yep.
So here's the interesting thing about that particular thing, is that there is healing, or there's healing necessary in both directions, right? All I could see what was happening to me, but I could never get to the why it was happening to me until long after he was gone.
Interesting.
And it took me arriving at compassion for him to understand what the deal was, right?
Yep.
And so, I mean, what a big can of worms this is, right? Like,
what it is though is like it's cutting them loose with compassion.
If I didn't have compassion at the time.
Not at the time, but that becomes part of the equation down the road.
So here's the thing. Because I know people that should cut people loose and they don't. I am a cut them loose person, and my regrets are that I don't have anything to regret. Because whenever I've done that, it's true. But whenever I've done that with the information that I had, and I did the best for myself at that time.
Right.
And then some people say, well, if you do that and they pass, you won't ever have an opportunity to make amends. Well, but they never made amends either, right?
Right. And actually, you do have an opportunity to make amends because...
Well, you do, but that's...
that's another...
You do, and I did, okay? You do, and I did.
Awesome.
And that's different. But, not everybody has that capacity.
True.
So I think it's important when you're going to do something like that, whether you are the parent whose child left or the child who left the parent, it is important for you to look at yourself and look within. Are you the type of person that is going to have soul-crushing regrets? Because if you're going to have soul-crushing regrets, then the first thing you need to do is look at your piece, right, in that dynamic
situation,
and then look at their piece in that dynamic and be able to own up to your own actions and be able to embrace their actions without judgment. In other words, they were doing what they did at the time when they chose to cut you loose. And it was the best they could with what they had at the moment, right? Like, so you have to take all of that, and we weren't going to bring it up, but I think it's interesting that we listened to this video by Abraham, Esther Hicks.
Yep.
And she talked about the marbles. And so I feel like you'll have to listen. You can go find Abraham Hicks on YouTube and look it up as it relates to the marbles. But basically, their analogy is that the marbles are the memories all in a bag.
Right.
So I'm thinking, like, if you take and expand from what Deepak said to these marbles, then in a situation like that, you need to be able to look at all the marbles, right? And you need to find the marbles that are beautiful and bright and colorful, and you need to bring those forward so that they attract more of that for yourself.
Right.
But you have to let go of the dark and the negative marbles.
Right. They might still be in the bag. They're still a real memory, but you're not activating them. You're not drawing them out. You let them be.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, I really like that.
Isn't that, because I think where people get into trouble with that is like, well, I deserve an apology. Maybe you do, maybe you don't, but it doesn't matter.
It doesn't
in the grand scheme of things. It doesn't matter.
Right. It's
matter.
It's your requirements of someone else that are the cause of suffering.
Is it? Oh man. Say that again for those in the back.
Your requirements of someone else are the cause of your suffering.
Wow.
Right? If you have to apologize in order for me to be happy, then I'm going to be waiting a long time before I get to be happy. It's my requirements that you apologize in order for me to be happy. No, it doesn't work that way.
Right?
Yep.
That's it. You hit that. You hit the nail on the head. Wow. Okay. So now I think, we were going to try these questions and see how it worked, but I think we already go to other places. So one thing in the article is that emotional memories can hinder personal growth and happiness. And we've already done this. Like, can we share examples? So, and the other thing is, how did you manage to overcome them? So I'm just going to honestly, I will say with the situation with my father, and it took me a long time to get there. And my sister hates it still.
Wow.
And I don't blame her. Right.
But
she really holds on to those memories. I arrived at a place of compassion. My father was on an aircraft carrier in World War II. He was aviation ordnance, which meant that he dealt with the planes after they bombed and landed on the aircraft carrier. And what he saw were the remains of those bombings, which, if you think about it, in World War II, how low those bombings were and what you might find on the bottom of those planes, it haunted him for the rest of his life. I mean, classic and powerful PTSD. Right? And so it wasn't until I started to have some awareness of things like PTSD and memories of, little itty bitty things he would say, because, when you were born in 1922, when you were in World War II, you didn't tell people what was going on with you. Right. So, it wasn't until I got to that place, and then I was able to understand that compassion is the bridge to forgiveness, and forgiveness is not about them, right? He was long gone by the time I figured it out. Yet I still have the opportunity to communicate if I want to, but that's neither here nor there. The forgiveness is about clearing the toxins from myself.
Yep.
Can I tell you a story? Hatred is so toxic.
I want to tell let me tell you an illustration that's come up a number of times. So one of the guys I listen to that's a meditation teacher is Jack Cornfield with a K. And he tells this story. He says, this is what compassion is. He says, you're walking out of a grocery store with your arms full of bags, and this guy bumps into you, and you're both knocked over and stuff's flying everywhere, and you jump up and you're like, what's the matter with you? Are you blind? And then you see he is blind.
Wow.
And your toxic anger turns to compassion. So
right. And how amazing it would be if we all walked around in a state of compassion instead of a state of anger. Right?
Right.
Now, here's where we make a decision. because we're at 20 minutes already.
All right.
I don't know where it went.
Oh, that's wow.
But I think this one could warrant, but I think what we'll do is, we'll kind of wind it up from here, and then we'll just continue the conversation in the next piece.
Yeah.
That way you can get this one as a whole, and if you want to hear more, you can go to the next piece. And
Perfect.
So let's just see. I don't even know. I don't know how to ask another question without sending us off on another 10 or 15 minutes.
Right.
So I will say that what would be a tip that you have for somebody who feels like they get on that hamster wheel, or they do let their memories, what is it? They do let their memories use them rather than them. What would be a tip? How could somebody work through it or past it or around it? Or
I'll pull something directly from the article. He has a list of things. He says there's any number of remedies to reduce the, effects of memories that are bothering you. He says the list is long and none of them are mystical. Regular meditation, yoga, being aware of a stress and addressing it, loving relationships, self-esteem, maintaining a simple state of awareness, and even better, maintaining a simple state of awareness without strong opinions or reactions. So his list of things of how do you kind of withdraw, or how do you pull away from those memories that control you, it's pretty simple stuff.
Right.
So that part of it is like, you can pull yourself out of those things. You can get away from memories that control you with some pretty well-known tools.
Such as an affirmation, which is
Indeed.
an affirmation to call on the state of neutral, which is really important if you do any kind of readings or anything. But the affirmation would just be, I move through my life free from assumption, judgment, self-doubt, and fear.
Wow.
And I do that so that I can live with grace and compassion.
Man, I'm glad we record these because I want that.
Yeah, it's
that's a good one. Wow.
It's really good. So the state, it is part of the core of what I teach, neutral state, but it's really, really important, because if you can pull the judgment and the fear out of those things, it's even the memories of people that you've lost, part of the attachment to that is the fear of being alone, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
So anyway, well, that's it for this segment. I guess we'll say this episode. What is this? Episode A? I don't know. Anyway, that's it for this segment, but we're going to pick this up on the next segment. So we'll see you on the flip side.
Awesome.